With Shan, RJ Choppy, and our Cowboys insider Bobby Belt. This is a better Cowboys insider joining us now on the D&M Leasing Hotline. He is Todd Archer from ESPN. Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing well, Bobby. You gonna take that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got to take it. I've got to.
My name comes first in the show, Todd.
I've got to carpe Sean's trash talk. That's what I have to do. So, by the way, carpe omnia, brother. Welcome.
I'm back to Carpe Diem. Maybe I'll go watch the movie again.
So, Todd, what do you do yesterday and today? Do you go to the same office spot you have at the Star? Do you sit around? Like, what's your day like?
Well, yesterday we were at the Star for locker room cleanout to talk to TJ Bass, Jordan Lewis, and Kevontae Turpin were the three guys that made themselves available in the locker room to speak to us. So that was good.
Did you get an invite Did you get an invite to Kevontae's party?
I did not. I was not unaware of Kevontae's party.
Oh yeah, him and Sam Williams. They had a victory party for Sunday at the Playhouse that fans are really, really thrilled about. They had it pre-planned for Sunday night party, baby.
Okay, well, I gotta be up to my Instagram post or something, I guess. And then today, we won't be at the Star, so I'm in my office working on stories that might never see the light of day, depending on what Jerry Jones does or does not do over the next, couple days, weeks, whatever we want to call it.
Is it like when when they have like a 90% obituary written and then you just like fill it in at the end, or when you're working on a game recap throughout?
Absolutely. We already have one story written in case the head coach change is made, and then you need the reaction to go along with it. So today's the reaction. And again, stories that may never see the light of day. So
what's your feeling on what plays out with this, Todd?
It's so hard to say. I bet you talk to people in the building, and I think it flips hourly, like on what they think and what they're hearing and what possibly could happen. And that's why anybody who says they know really doesn't know. This is info that has to come from Jerry and Steven, and they're obviously not talking to you guys because the season's over. And now we're in a situation where we're just kind of wait and see. It's hard just from the outside looking in, right? And being around the team, it's hard to imagine they can just run it back and say, hey, we're close, we'll just get it done.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what happens in Philadelphia, a team that was in the Super Bowl last year. Now everybody thinks they're going to fire their coach. Like, do you make the bold choice, which may be wrong, and fire a coach that won 36 games in the last 3 years, and hire a guy that they'll have questions about, regardless of who it is, from Belichick to Harbaugh to some guy we're not even thinking of, right? Mike Vrabel, whatever. And then you could be wrong there too. So which way would you rather be wrong? Because whatever you do, are you going to get credit for being right? If you keep Mike and they win, are you really going to get credit for that? Probably not, because and then if they hire another guy and they win, are you going to get credit for that? No, because the new guy will get the credit. So this is not the situation that Jerry thought he was going to be in. And seeing him in post-game locker rooms, over the years, that was as stunned as I've seen him be, probably going back to that Giants game in 2007.
Absolutely. Todd Archer, ESPN on the D&M Leasing Hotline. Before we move forward, speculation, names, and this and that, I have to get your take on what happened Sunday.
It was a great game.
It was. I meant our game, not the first game. The other one.
My bad. We were the first one. Summed it up right? I mean, they picked a bad day to have a bad day, and everything was bad. And the defense was. It was. You look at the numbers and say, okay, they had a really good season. They took the ball away. Bland had his interceptions, and Micah had his sacks. But there's always something about the defense that felt uneasy, and it was largely about the running game.
Yeah. And
then their first possession, they gave up points on their first possession in 11 of 18 games.
Oh,
that's not good. And their running game, obviously, the Packers were eventually able to run all over them and do whatever they did. They never got any pressure on Jordan Love. And then offensively, again, the first possession, looked off and carried all the way through. If that third down pass to CD connects on the first drive, are things different? Probably not, because I don't think the defense is stopping them. And they may have lost 48-47, but I still don't think there was any way they were winning that game with the way the defense was playing. And now this is where Bobby thinks I'm protecting his quarterback. But Dak was not good in that game, and same old questions about him. I have something later in the week. Dak and Romo have become the same quarterback.
Ooh. And I know
which version's better.
So at what point in what point in the Romo jump off, Todd, am I like for you? Like am I getting close to the point where you were like, all right, Tony's not going to get it done? Do you think I'm close?
You'll never be close to that, thinking it'll never be done. So no, I think it's different because at the end, Tony's body broke down, right? Mm-hmm. And 2014 was his best chance. And obviously we know the Dez catch and all that stuff. And then he started 4 games after that. Like, he broke his left collarbone twice the next year, had the back injury in 2016, and then he was done. Dak is only going to be 31 in July and just played every game for the first time since 2019. So health-wise, Dak is at a different point than Tony was at the end of after 8 full seasons as a starter, same as Tony. But the question is about the contract and what do you do? Do you really extend him out and give him 5 for $250, $50 million a year, when he's not taking your team to the Super Bowl in 8 years as your starting quarterback? Peyton Manning went to his first Super Bowl in his 9th year. Matt Ryan went to his first and only Super Bowl in his 9th year. Ken Anderson went to his first and only Super Bowl in 1981, his 10th year with the Bengals. Those are the only 3 quarterbacks since 1980 to have been their team starter, as long as Dak will be this year, to go to a Super Bowl for the first time.
But, Todd, if I ask you the certainty of McCarthy and Dak both being here next year, you're like way more confident in Dak, right? They're not.
Oh, yeah. There's no question he'll be the quarterback in 2024. I'm talking about 2025, 26, 27. Like, are they better served to just play it out and somehow live with a $59.5 million cap figure? Are there ways that they can add voidables to the contract and lower that to be able to keep some guys, add some guys? Maybe that's the way you go about it. But extending him, I mean, you're fighting history in that case. And are you paying him because you want to, or are you paying him because you have to?
If Sean McVay was the coach here, would Dak be here next year?
Yeah. I mean, let's not be twisted. Dak's really good. Like, he just had his best season. I would also make the argument he's had these kind of seasons before when Kellen Moore was his quarterback. We want to dump all over what Kellen did here. Kellen had the highest scoring offense in the top 5 in yards, same as Mike has done, and put up the same numbers against better teams as Mike did. You know, when we look at how they did in the big games this year. So let's not jump to the conclusion that everything was great with the offense this year. They've done this thing before. This whole season we've seen before plenty of times from the Cowboys, whether it's Dak or Tony or whatever. But yeah, Dak's his quarterback in 2024, no question. And he should be. And I'm almost tempted to say just play it out, and then if he wins for you, well, then give him $100 million. Who cares? He won for you. So that might be the best way to go about it. But to do that, you've got to say goodbye to a lot of guys with that cap figure, because there's only so many contracts you can redo just to get under the cap, let alone have space to add guys.
I guess, Todd, the only thing there is if you were to play it out and he does show you what you need to see, and then they go, okay, all right, we're ready to pay you. Are we certain, just because this can build up and cause fatigue, are we certain that at the end of that moment, with no ability to tag him or anything else, that Dak would for sure stay here?
Yeah, that's the risk you take, right? And so there's risk. The risk on signing to the extension is he doesn't get to a Super Bowl. The risk in not signing him is he goes somewhere else. Like, there's risks involved. I mean, I'm not an analytics guy, so I can't give you the FPI on all that stuff or what would happen more or the other. But yeah, there's no doubt it's a risk. And it's, you know, quick aside, this whole no trade clause, he can still be traded. He just picks where he wants to go.
Right.
Like, let's forget about that one. But the no franchise thing, again, draw it back to Romo. He had the same thing in his contract where the Cowboys couldn't tag him. He signed a deal in 2013 that made him the sixth highest paid quarterback at $18 million a year. Dude, that was only 11 years ago. It was 18. Now we're up to 50. Like, if play quarterback in this league, you're going to be okay. But I'll take the chance. And if Dak wins a Super Bowl for you, why would he want to leave?
Todd Archer joining us here, 105 through the Fan. What is the timeline, your best guess, for a Mike decision?
He let him twist pretty good a couple years ago with Dan Quinn, right? What was that, 10 days? I don't even can't remember all. I got to go back and look that up. I don't think it happens quick. Quick as in by the end of this week. But he has to do something one way or the other. Either say Mike's my guy or we're moving on. I would say by next week, because when we've talked about head coaching changes in the past, it's like, well, who are you going to get who's better? And there are arguments that you could make that this guy would or wouldn't have been better. But I think there are options this year where you can say, dude's been to 9 Super Bowls, take that risk. Guy just won a national championship, has gone to a Super Bowl with another franchise, take that risk. And then, a guy like Mike Vrabel, who you think has ran a pretty good ship in Tennessee, and for a variety of reasons probably couldn't get over the top, but you think he's a guy that has some championship DNA to him from his time in New England, that maybe he could be better too. This is different because there are options available, so you might need to move quicker than you would want to move in the past. Like when we were wondering about Mike, was it after the 21 season?
Mm-hmm.
Remind me of the head coaching candidates then that you said, go get that guy.
Yeah.
Maybe there were some, but I don't think there's any way that Jerry hires a Slowick or a Ben Johnson or a young offensive-minded coach that has never been a head coach. He's 81 years old. He doesn't want to live with a coach who's still trying to figure this thing out.
See, and that's what I was curious about, is that I'm sure a lot of Cowboys fans would, with the opportunity to hire another coach, they want, okay, let's go get the young offensive mind, or let's go get this hot shot player or this hot shot coach. But you would think that it's much more likely that he would take somebody who's got previous coaching experience. So in addition to the guys that you just named there, those 3, like, do you think they would potentially talk to somebody like Pete Carroll or find one of these other guys? I mean, shoot, Mike Zimmer's trying to get back into the NFL. That's not necessarily, is that an upgrade? Probably not. I mean, that's nothing, but there's a relationship there. Do you think they would narrow their search completely to, hey, a prerequisite is you have to have experience?
Well, considering the last coaching search was all of 2 people, and Mike McCarthy and Marvin Lewis, I don't know how deep and wide that search would be if they were to move on from Mike. Now, when Parcells left here, they interviewed like 12 guys. So he has done it before, but I think he's at a different place in 2024 than he was in 2007. So he lived through Jason Garrett trying to figure it out on the job as a young offensive assistant, bred to be the head coach down the road. I can't imagine that he would want to do that again with a team that he believes, and truthfully, that can win. It's got 9 first and second team All-Pros on this thing, all the Pro Bowlers. It's not like this is a team that they didn't fake their way to a 12-5 record. There's talent here.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, that's all this is just so confusing. Like, none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why they just imploded on Sunday.
What's missing, Todd? On the field, culturally, like we all say this, generic phrase. It's the culture. Like, what is the Dallas Cowboys culture to you, and what is missing? If you're walking the halls and Steven caught you and was like, "What do you think?" Like, what's the missing element?
Well, if I had that answer, I wouldn't be talking to you guys at 7:20 in the morning.
Hey, we got good ratings, man. It's not that bad.
No, it has nothing to do with that. I'd be having membership at the Cowboy Club and playing golf somewhere in warm weather. I push back on the culture thing because I think there is a good culture that in that locker room with those players. Like, they work hard. They do the right things. Yeah, there's some knuckleheadedness in that room where some guys do stuff you don't want to do. But guess what? that I'm sure that happens everywhere in the NFL with even the teams that'll be playing this upcoming weekend, where you just have guys you scratch your head and say, "What are you thinking?" I don't think it's a culture issue here. I just think it's, and I don't want to say it's the pressure of 28 seasons without a Super Bowl now. I just think it's, oh God, I got no answer for you. And that's probably what Jerry's doing, right? But like beyond, we can always, like, culture is always the easy answer. Jerry talks too much, and Jerry undermines his coach, and Jerry needs to hire a real GM. Well, I just said they got 9 first and second team All-Pros. Does anybody who has more? Like
right.
the roster construction is not this team's issue. It's
Quarterback.
So I don't know what that last missing piece is to get past a divisional round, or in this case, a wild card round of the playoffs, other than play better when it matters most. And that's coach better when it matters most. Like, none of that has happened forever. Now, 2016, Aaron Rodgers stole it from you. 2014, everybody will argue Gene Steratore stole it from you, but Aaron Rodgers still had 5 or 6 minutes left in that game if the Cowboys had scored. 2009, Brett Favre killed you. In 2017 or in 2007, they let that one slip against the Giants when they had that. To me, that's still the best team to not win a Super Bowl here. Not these last year, this year's team. It was that team was the most talented team since the 90s Cowboys, not this one. That team had 13 Pro Bowlers and guys in their peak, and learned from Parcells and were ready to blossom, and they did, and they blew it.
Todd, when we look at the Dan Quinn situation, he's obviously got a bunch of job interviews lined up here, but there's a lot of criticism that he's taken in the aftermath of this one. Is it a certainty that if he doesn't get one of these jobs, is it a certainty that he's coming back as the defensive coordinator?
I want to say yes. And I think this is where you need a big picture view of what he's done in 3 seasons, not what happened in 4 quarters against the Packers. There are issues. Basically, he can just never coach against a Kyle Shanahan or a Kyle Shanahan disciple and perform well. So that they got to figure something out. But you look at what he was able to do, and maybe it's because it was just such a disaster in 2020, but it's hard to argue with the success he's had as the coordinator to say one game is going to be the reason why you get rid of Dan Quinn if he doesn't get a head coaching opportunity, which I think we all believe is going to come, right? He's interviewing for 5 jobs at least. He's got to get. You'd think he's going to get one of these, and I think he wants to be a head coach again. So, but I don't know. Let me ask you this: would Jerry make him the head coach here? I can't see him doing that after what happened. So I just went against the exact premise that I made of using one game versus 3 years.
I was gonna say, like, can't you say the same thing about McCarthy? Like, if you're gonna go through the last 3 years, 12 wins versus 4 quarters.
But you're 1 and 3 in the playoffs.
Up.
You can point to that, right? He was brought here to do what Garrett couldn't do, and he's done the same thing Garrett did.
Yeah, Todd, what do you make of the idea of Bill Belichick and Jerry and him working together, whether Jerry's ego would allow it, whether Bill would do it here, whether it would work with Will McClay and Steven, and that whole possible dynamic?
I mean, the easy answer is say, well, if Bill Parcells can work here, anybody can work here, right? Yeah. Different circumstances then. Jerry needed a stadium. Bill needed a job. Now Jerry needs a Super Bowl, and this Bill needs a job. So maybe it could happen from that perspective. I listened to Belichick's end of season press conference in New England where he was basically, I thought he was interviewing for other teams by saying, I don't need to have total control. Yeah. I'm willing to give up some of that stuff. That he was telling every other team in the league, hey, I'm open for business. If you guys want me, there are going to be certain things I'm going to do, but I don't need to run everything here. And yes, there is a good relationship between Jerry and Belichick and Steven and Belichick over the years. I can see it, although I got to be honest with you, talking to people before the playoff game, it was kind of laughed off as that's not going to happen. Oh. But the way that ended, the way the Packers game happened, I think everything's open. That opens the possibility at least. And good Lord, imagine our network if that were to happen. Oh, jeez.
Todd, if Mike is not here, who would be your 1, 2, 3 list of replacements?
I mean, I would say Belichick because maybe that's the element that they need of of 9 Super Bowl wins. I realize it didn't end well after Brady and all that stuff, but there's an element of if Bill said do 10 jumping jacks, you win a Super Bowl. 53 guys would do 10 jumping jacks because they think they're going to win a Super Bowl. Vrabel is intriguing to me because he has a Belichick pedigree and he won Super Bowls in New England and he's got a toughness and a hardness about him that maybe that's one of those elements when you ask me what's missing, that will be an option. I don't think Harbaugh would come here, so I'm not worried about that one.
Why?
So I would put those guys at the top.
Why?
I think at his point in his life, he would want to have some sort of control over the situation. Just my gut feeling based on nothing other than that. So those would be the 2 guys. I don't see Pete Carroll coming in. I don't see that being a fit. Mike Tomlin?
Oh, yeah.
That one. Why not?
Todd, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for the time. And let us know what the halls are like when you go back to the Star.
Well, I'll see Bobby there, so I'll just say hey to him.
Yeah. Carpe Omnia.
Omnia, there you go.
Carpe Omnia, Todd.
That sign was still up yesterday. I wonder when it comes down.
Hey, I mean, look, they need Omnia to change. That's what they need.
Thank you, Todd.
See you guys.
Looking forward to the Dak Romo piece. That will get a lot of clicks and hits from Todd Archer, ESPN on the D&M Leasing Hotlines.